Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Harder Not Smarter podcast. Today, our guest is someone who can show you what you can accomplish when you have a get it done mentality and the willingness to learn new things every day. After serving 20 years in the Army across the enlisted and officer ranks, Michael Klemmer, like many of us, tried finding his place in the world after the uniform. He took an interest in coffee and combined it with his desire to be an entrepreneur. But this coffee company was not going to be boring like Folgers. He wanted to represent the tens of thousands of military support personnel working behind the scenes with their dry humor that bring the coffee, and bring that culture to coffee. Aerial Resupply is not shooting explosions and cool guy hair. It's the guys making sure that the guns, bombs, and hair gel make it to the frontline troops. So please welcome Michael Klemmer to the Harder Not Smarter podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. And by the way, my cool guy hair is going away. So that's part of the reason why that we're not doing it that way.
That's all right. You still get the good hats. We need to start getting our swag together, Greg.
I know, we really do.
So
We still got the beards going now.
We do.
Mike, you got a clean shave.
I can't do the beard. I just can't do it. I've tried the vet beard. I've tried to grow it out. I get about 3 weeks in and I just start scratching my face. And I'm like,
you got to push through that. You got to push through
Yeah.
the itch, and then it becomes just nice. No, seriously, for me, it's usually on like the 7 to 10 day mark. I'm like, oh, it's just driving me crazy. I mean, it's been a long time since I've done a fresh shave. But yeah, that first week to 2 weeks sucks, and then it's just baby smooth. It feels so good. It's a little sweater for your face.
Well, maybe if I take the Hammers character in a certain direction, I'll throw a beard on him.
There we go.
I like that.
I like that a lot. It'd be
All right,
cool if you could take like frames of you with just shoot now a video and then grow out the beard and then shoot it like with the beard on the hammer.
I could do that. I think well, I got a lot of interesting things I'm going to do with these characters, so we'll see.
Well, honestly, you could do the awkward, I'm going to grow my vet beard now in your videos, and you'd be like, what is that thing growing on your face?
That's true. I could do that.
How weird it looks.
Well, I could do that, but the only problem that I run into is that all of a sudden then it's the Hammer, Mike, and Chris all growing beards simultaneously. So it's almost like, because of the way I do all the filters and everything to go back and forth. So I guess it could just be like having all three of them making a, almost like a no shave November type pact and then going through it that way. I don't know. That's not a bad idea. I might do something like that.
I like it. But so everyone's seen Matt Best chugging coffee as he steps off a Mini Bird, with the sleeveless shirt for Black Rifle. At what point were you like, I can do that, but I need to make a coffee company for the guys that are fueling that Mini Bird?
Honestly, it was not that video, but it was. I ran across an ad, and the guys from BRCC had jumped out of an aircraft in a car, right? Like it was an airdrop.
Of course they did.
They're like sitting in a car, and then they come out the back of. I think they came out the back of like a helicopter or something. But they're like drinking coffee and parachuting down in a convertible, right? And of course, and so then they come off and they parachute off. The car slams into the ground, and that was their videos. And I looked at that and I was like, man, that's really cool. I will never do that. So what can I do? And well, I mean,
that looks awesome. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. Those guys are great. But then I just started really thinking about it, and I was like, well, where are the companies that speak to what I did in the military? And quite honestly, there aren't any, because logistics and kind of the back end behind the scenes, POG, whatever you want to call the rear echelon mofos in the background doing all the work. They're the ones that kind of get ridiculed inside the military, but they're the ones that, like, without them, none of the cool guy stuff happens. And so,
as I said, you guys are carrying the guns, the bombs, and the hair gel. Can't look good without the hair gel.
Well, I mean, the hair gel is the most important part for you guys. You got to look good while you're doing it, right? And so, I mean, if action movies haven't taught us anything, it's that if you aren't looking good in the actual act of blowing things up, then why do it? So,
for sure,
yeah, exactly. So for me, it was. I wanted to do something that spoke to me, and aerial resupply was something that I did when I was in Afghanistan, and not so much Iraq, but the 2 tours I did in Afghanistan. And while I didn't, I wasn't in the aircraft kicking pallets out the back. I did a lot of the planning behind the scenes and a lot of making sure that loads were built correctly. But other than that, and I did get a chance to go up and do a Sherpa once when we were doing like low cost, low altitude LCLA stuff where, and I vowed to myself after I got off that aircraft that I would never do that again too, because those guys are crazy. Like the pilots in that one, you're like, I'm done. Like, I don't want to be, they make it their mission to make everybody in the back vomit into their brain bucket. So I just didn't want to be a part of it. And so
Like, you guys suck.
yeah,
I mean, I'll admit that the most terrified I ever was in the military was in a helicopter every single time.
Oh.
Greg, were you?
So yeah, and we flew with some of the Afghan pilots, man, and those guys, it's oh my gosh, and they have no fear though. They will land anywhere, and it's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying.
No such thing as rotor distance away from something else, right? Yeah.
No, including an individual.
The scariest flight I've ever been on was I was on a Canadian CH-47, Chinooks. And the Canadian pilots, American Chinooks fly in tandem. Like all American aircraft fly, here's one Chinook, there's a second one, even battle buddies in the air. The Canadians are like, no, it's one Chinook and then a gunship flying like, probably 500 feet to 1,000 feet above, to provide overwatch. But the Canadians are like, we're going to fly about 15 feet off the ground and we're going to go as fast as possible and we're going to dart in and out. And when we came to a stop, all I did was look at the ground because the aircraft is like vertical, trying to come to a stop to use the rotor wash to stop. I'm like, get me off this thing. And I never flew another Canadian aircraft ever. Like, I'll never do it again. Obviously.
Fuck you guys. You guys suck. I'm out.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So that's why I started. So to get back to the original point. So I wanted to build a coffee company because coffee's like all about building relationships. It's all about, kind of like, I'm not a big alcohol guy. So I kind of looked at, what was out there. And, the military culture, I think is generally accepted as a very alcohol heavy culture. And I wanted to do something that wasn't continuing to promote that and was promoting something healthier, because coffee by itself is much healthier for you than, alcohol or anything else. And
Monster
still
energy drinks
builds a community. Yeah. I mean, it's something that and it's got all the different flavors. So I don't know. That was the idea behind it after I saw the BRCC thing. And I'm like, okay, I can do this. This sounds fun and enjoyable and where I want to go.
And at that point, how much did you know about roasting coffee, brewing coffee, other than just showing up to the coffee mess and pouring a cup?
Zero. Actually, I knew about, I knew enough to be dangerous, I guess. I knew that it did get roasted. Like, I knew some very basic things, right? I knew, like, hey,
these things do get heated up and cooked.
Exactly. It comes from Central and South America. Like, I knew that, but beyond, and I knew, but I didn't really understand like the process. I didn't understand the different origins, the varieties. I mean, I guess I understood it a little bit because, you go to coffee shops and people have up all sorts of different things like Guatemalans and Brazilians and all sorts of different like single origin coffee. So you're like, well, what's that? And then you're just like, well, give me whatever you have on drip. Because at the end of the day, you're like, I don't care. I just want to drink coffee. But I learned.
It sounds like me when I go wine tasting. They're like, oh, do we like the Pinot Noir or the Merlot? I'm like, is it red? Sounds good. I like red wine.
It's actually really similar because, a lot of people, go to just like coffee is a beverage to them. It's like, I wake up in the morning, I drink it because it's what I expect myself to drink. I've grown up to like it. I'm not too concerned about what it is so long as it's coffee and puts caffeine in my body. Like, that's what I want. Wine is very similar in that, does it taste good? Is it like what I want it to be? Most people don't sit around and say, oh, I can really pull out these tasting notes and this is like really what I'm looking for. Like, we're not all sommeliers, right? So, there is something to be said for that. But then there are people on the opposite end of the spectrum that are like, I want this 1853 bottle that was housed in the basement of some French villa for 100 years. And like, that's the only thing I'm going to drink. And same in the coffee world. So you can go as far into it or as little into it as you want, but there's still a lot of great flavors out of it.
So what has been, go ahead, Kevin. Well, I was going to say, like, what is the, What is what are some of like the like early on, like, 'cause for me it's like I know light, medium, and dark roast coffee. Like what are some of the differences? What are some of the things that you picked up, or just like for the average drinker, what should they know about coffee?
Well, I
Because I'm
think,
like one of those that doesn't care.
well, and quite honestly, when I first started this, that was the breadth of my knowledge was like, okay, I'm going to need a light, medium, and dark roast. So like, what do I do? Right. And, you start doing your research. I did almost all of my research off of YouTube, mainly because I'm like, well, there's a lot of smart people out there that know a lot of information. And so why not use their information to help me pull myself along? It's a lot like reading in the military, right? It's like other people's experience pull forward. So for me, it was I wanted a bean, or I wanted to build my product line off of something that had a lot of good flavor in terms of not bitter. I didn't want the acidity, and I wanted something that I could use in multiple ways. And for me, that was Colombian, what I call Colombian Supremo, but it's a Colombian Excelsior bean. And what it is it's kind of like the predominant bean, like I guess generically, that comes out of Colombia, right? And it's kind of like their baseline. And you can do it with Brazilians, you can do it with Costa Ricans or Guatemalans. Like there's always like kind of like a baseline coffee that people are used to. And Colombian coffee by itself is usually a stronger coffee. And I wanted that, but I wanted it muted down just a little bit. And so I had to learn that. I had to learn how to mute the coffee just a little bit to get the flavor profile I wanted. But I mean, what I've learned since then is, when you start roasting this, 30 seconds one way or another from whatever your target temperature will fundamentally change the taste of the coffee. So like you have to be very intentional with how you roast coffee to get whatever flavor profiles you are. So this, I'm not a master by any stretch of the imagination. I'm still learning. So there's a long way to go before I could ever consider myself an expert at what all of this is.
And what have you figured out is your favorite um, style of coffee? Not style, the roast of coffee after you've done each of them and variations in between.
Well, so like Spectre is my dark espresso roast, right? It's a combination of a couple different coffee origins. It's a combination of the Colombian that I use, as well as Sumatra, which is an Indonesian coffee. And what I do, and so both of them are roasted fairly dark. And then, there's a ratio that combines them to kind of bring that different type of flavor profile that I think I personally like. And I think a common misconception about like espresso coffee is it's not coffee that can only be used as espresso, right? Like it's not roasted specifically as, if you're going to drink this, you can only drink it that way. It's kind of I don't want to say branding, but it's kind of a way that you look at it as, this is a good coffee for multiple different types of brewing. So whether you do drip, French press, AeroPress, whether you put it in espresso and you do pucks, it can work in all facets like that. So that's really my favorite one, just because I do like the earthy tones. Like I said, I like a little bit of a citrus aftertaste with what I do. I don't want it to sit in my mouth forever, which is something that can happen with coffee. Like if you've ever drank coffee and half an hour later, you're still like, I still taste my coffee from this morning. Like I didn't really want to do that. So like
I should have brushed my teeth.
Yeah. So I try to find and roast coffees that are really good, really smooth. They're great in the moment. You might have a little bit of it, but after that, it's like, hey, I go on with my day.
Mm-hmm. So you started. You're like, I'm going to start a coffee company. I know nothing. I've got YouTube. How does somebody that wants to follow in your footsteps get going like you do? Because I know you had a job at the time. You got out of the military.
I did.
SkillBridge is something we're going to have to talk about later, because I know a lot of
Yeah.
people have questions about SkillBridge. You had a job. You're like, I'm going to do this on the side. How does someone get started in their house roasting their own? I don't even know did you even roast your own coffee at the beginning, or did you buy pre-roasted and then move from there?
Well, I've done both. And so, because a lot of it was trying to figure out what works for me. And I bought a little 1 kilogram roaster, bullet roaster, to kind of test some things. You can buy green coffee from anywhere. But for me, the big thing was I started really thinking through the process of, okay, if somebody wanted to buy coffee from me off of the internet, which seemed like the easiest way at the time for me, since I was working and I was trying to build, a side hustle or whatever it was to try to, build a business. I started thinking through the process. Okay, so somebody goes to a website, so I need a website. Somebody wants to pay. Somebody's going to have to look at this picture of an item. So I'm going to need packaging. I'm going to need branding. I'm going to need a logo. Then they're going to need, and then I'm going to need the coffee inside of it. So where is that coming from? How am I going to get it? How are they going to pay for it? How's it being shipped? How's it being delivered? How's that going? And I just started really breaking down the entire process from start to finish of somebody finds my stuff to it arrives in their house and they brew it, right?
That's a great
And
way to look at how to
and
figure out all the steps.
well, right. And so like and from there I started really analyzing and I started saying, okay, well, what do I absolutely have to have versus what can I either outsource or what can I get away with or what is the minimum viable product, right? I think everybody's kind of heard the MVP terminology
Mm-hmm.
in the startup entrepreneurship space. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be, it has to exist. And so I tore it all apart and I realized that I could roast my own coffee. But one of the things that I learned very quickly as you roast your own coffee is it's great to roast 2 pounds of coffee at a time. But if you're doing it consistently, how do you roast? If I had an order for 100 pounds of coffee, I'm roasting 50. That's 50 roasts to get to 100 pounds. At some
Mm-hmm.
point, standardization starts to fall off because as great as we are as human beings, there's still a little bit of play in all of that, right? So you have to be able to figure out how to standardize it. So that's when I started looking at having help from people who could do much larger roast in much larger batches. So a lot of what I did was fine tune flavor profiling and then kind of have somebody else help me with some of the larger productions of roast, especially as I scale.
So you're
And
able
now
to
you're
find
doing all that
people.
in house.
Yeah. So I have a 10 kilogram roaster that actually roasts 22 pounds of coffee at a time. This year, I'm not anywhere close to it, but I can actually roast about 120,000 pounds of coffee annually. And I have the ability to continue to build K cups and I can grind it any which way you want. And I can package it whole bean ground anywhere from 2 ounces to 5 pounds. And I have the ability to meet all sorts of demands. And like today, like I was telling you guys earlier, I've, about 1,200 pounds of coffee showing up. I still have about 200 pounds of coffee on the floor. And I'll go through all of that in like the next 30 to 45 days.
That's that's serious production quality or production quantity at this point.
Yeah, it's moving and it's moving a lot faster. And a lot of the scaling efforts, when you look back 2.5 years ago, my first my first purchase ever was from my mom, which is great, right? Like you get everybody look, if you
As
start
it
a
should
business,
be.
I'm gonna say this to anybody. If you're starting a business, your mom or your dad or your family member better be the very first person that buys from you, right? Like it just better be family supports family. So I hope you have that in your life. And if you do, that should be where it is. If not, your best friend. Like get somebody close to you so that you can frame that and that becomes something that is important to you in your life.
That's a great way. I mean, the model I teach everybody is you're not trying to start off by getting the entire internet on board with what you have. You start with the people who know and trust you, and once that circle has been fulfilled and they are satisfied with the product, they've given good reviews, they've said that this is what's good, this was bad, you've made adjustments, then you can go to the next circle, which is the people who know and trust the people who know you, and you just keep branching that circle of trust out essentially. But by starting in close, you get um, unadulterated feedback from the people, because you can be like, hey, honestly, is this good? Are you satisfied with this? Was this helpful? And then you can make those changes, and they're not going to be apprehensive about giving you solid feedback. And then it allows you to exponentially grow your network, because every person that you know has a network of people that they know. And so as you leverage that circle of trust, you can really grow sustainably, as you said.
Well, see, I wish I had done that because that sounded better than what I actually did. What I actually did was just launched it and just said, here I am. And like I did no pre-sales. I didn't, I mean, I kind of came out of nowhere. Like on August 15th of 2021, because I still have the post. I mean, obviously it's in my LinkedIn history. I'm just like, hey, I have a business. Like I didn't tell anybody what I was doing. And then just one day I just launched the post and said, here I am. And, and then my mom, bought a bag for me as kind of a test run. And then a couple other people did. And then it just kind of died. And it was like, okay, well, now I got to start the hard work of marketing this and figuring out what works and how I do this. And so it's been a lot of learning lessons to get this done. But had I done what you said, it might have been easier. But I don't know. I guess I chose hard mode.
I mean, that's why we named our podcast Harder Not Smarter, because
Right.
sometimes you just got to go hard and figure it out as you go. There isn't always the time or the ability to find the smart way through things. Not everything in life has a life hack.
That's right.
And you learned a ton from it anyway. With that, you obviously have a very distinct voice and style to your marketing. When did that come about? How did you get these videos of you have the hammer? Is the hammer the kernel, or is the kernel
Yeah,
separate?
the hammer's the kernel.
Okay.
Chris is my failed attempt at being a fake Navy SEAL. And then no offense, Kevin, but and then I have, Joe, who doesn't really make an appearance much anymore. I've kind of, he's working. And then
Is he the E4 that just recently got out? Okay.
Yeah. And then I got Noelle, which is the hammer's girlfriend, which may or may not show up again. I'm still torn with that one. We'll see what happens. And then I got a couple in the queue, but you know what it was? A lot of it had to do with the fact that I was kind of just tired of just making videos where it was just Mike talking to himself, right? Or talking to the camera. And while that has a place for itself, like I have a lot of really good friends who are very heavily into social media that I think everybody knows, like, the Mandatory Fun Days, Habitual Line Crossers, Tyler Butterworth, a lot of these people who are out there making some killer content. And, I just kind of, one day I was like, like I think it was probably about a year and a half ago when I first came up with Chris, who was my first character, playing the fake Navy SEAL, because everything I saw was, hey, we're going to be Jocko. We're going to run off and we're going to start a leadership thing. And then you go on LinkedIn and like everybody who comes out and I'm generalizing, but it's like everybody who comes out in the SF community all of a sudden wants to sell leadership books and sell like consulting stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to take this and run with it and have fun with it. Right. And so I'm going to be like, all right, I'm going to hire somebody like that and then kind of just mock it, because I think it's funny.
Deserves
Like,
mocking.
yeah, well,
Yeah,
I mean,
it does.
Like if you can't make fun of yourselves, I mean, what are we really doing here, right? And so I mock being a veteran-owned coffee company for the fact that, like I've said to other people before, the very first conversation I ever had with somebody outside of my inner circle was with another full bird who basically told me I was a loser because I was starting a coffee company and coffee and t-shirt company. He's like, oh, you're just another one of these like has-beens that's just following the trend. And I'm like, okay, well, so the hammer kind of came out because I rekindled that in my mind after another conversation. I'm like, oh, I'm bringing him into the fray. Like he's coming in to be a part of this. And so like, that's, and he's a lot of what I do, or he's a lot of every other full bird kernel that I've ever run into in my entire life. I mean, like there's a couple good ones, but by and large, it's like once you get to '06, the lobotomy is kind of hit, and you're
It's in
in
full
it.
force.
There's a reason why they say the Army runs on the back of '06s, and so like it's like, okay, you're coming in, and then Joe is kind of a tribute to my leadership, to my enlisted background, and then I don't know, but I did it because I wanted to find something that had more commonality, and quite honestly, nobody makes fun of full bird kernels. Everybody makes fun of E4s and everybody below. So
at what point are you going to dump like just a truck full of coffee beans on this dude's like front lawn, and I don't know, maybe some cow shit or something like that?
Well, oh, you mean like
The
Burt
kernel.
Reynolds? Like you mean like
Yeah.
when Burt Reynolds did it to the TMZ or whatever it was?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a good idea. I hadn't really thought
Yeah.
about that. Coffee's.
Yeah.
I mean, I can come up with a lot of coffee very quickly. So we'll see.
I know people.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, and it's funny because like now because I use LinkedIn predominantly, I know a ton of people, and I've had a lot of people reach out to me who are like, hey, if you ever want, to shoot helicopter videos or to shoot, aircraft videos, we could do this. So I'm pretty sure I could find somebody with a helicopter that wants to sling load a bunch of stuff to somebody's yard. So we'll see what we can do.
Do you know Luke Peelgrain?
I know the name. Isn't he the chief marketing officer for BRCC?
He just, or if he hasn't left yet, he's just leaving. He announced that he's leaving shortly. But he also owns Clandestine Media Group.
I did know that.
Okay, so he started Well, give his full story. We'll have him on the podcast, I think, in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
But he started equipment company, and then he was like, "Man, this is really expensive to get photo shoots of this stuff. I'm just going to teach myself how to do photography." And then people saw his stuff, were like, "Man, this is really cool. No one does these types of shoots." And so he started Clandestine Media Group, and they do those badass shoots of them riding snowmobiles across the Montana plains.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Wearing all the cool guy stuff. But yeah, they have some incredible shots, but they have access to a bunch of helicopters because they have mini birds and 60s and other stuff in their shoots. So you can probably reach out to them and be like, "Hey, can we get a sling load photo shoot going?"
I've actually, so I spoke to Luke, I think before he I think I connected with Luke right before he went to BRCC. Like he was clandestine, and then he, I think, latched on to Black Rifle, and then I haven't talked to him since. I mean, I think, I don't know. I tend to not reach out to the guys who are heavily involved in that, just only because out of professional courtesy and respect. But if I didn't know he was leaving, if that's the case, and
yeah, he just announced that he was leaving.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's going full bore with Clandestine Media Group now.
Should.
Oh, it's phenomenal, and he's been keeping that going on the side. He's still doing all those gear shoots, but he just wasn't as involved with day-to-day operations. So now he's getting back to that stuff, especially with BRCC getting as big as they are. Like they're a publicly traded company now. They're massive. So he wants to have more control over what he's doing and have that creative freedom. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, maybe one day when ARC is as big as I want it to be, I'll have, my own stable of little birds and Blackhawks sitting over here that I can watch people take off in because I'm never getting in it again, but we'll see.
Oh, who we need to introduce Mike to is Matt Benko. He's a roadmaster on C-130s. He's the one that's given us those videos of the airdrops and the halo jumps. He's with the Air National Guard out.
No, I'm connected.
He's on the East Coast someplace. Oh, you know?
Oh yeah, I'm connected to Matt. He sent me a couple of videos, so I got a couple videos from him too. So there's a lot of things out here, and so like if you go back into like how you build companies and how you do this, like there's so much you can do, and I, from an experience standpoint, a lot of this kind of drive to do what I do comes back from my first tour in Afghanistan, where my boss is like, "Hey, I need you to build this fob," and he took me out to this blank piece of land, and there's like nothing. And he's like, "Yeah, let's put 2,000 American soldiers here." I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Go forth and do great things." It's like,
figure it out.
Okay. So, but I mean, it's like so much the Wild West. And I mean, if your guys' experience is anything like mine, you get into these operational deployments and it's like, "Can we do this? Who's telling us no?" Okay, let's go do it. And so that's a lot of what building a business is. It's like, well, who's telling you no? Well, I mean, state regulations might tell you no. You might have some federal laws that says you can or cannot do it, but by and large, for the most part, it's like free game, like whatever you want to do. And so go do it. And that's, so like that's where, someday, I guess I follow a YouTube channel called Heavy D that like bought a CH-30, or he bought his own Black Hawk helicopter and then taught himself like how to fly it. Like I'd love to do that, but like I said, I'm not flying, but I'd love to have that available. I mean, it'd be cool to have that, in my front yard. Let's put it that way.
Absolutely.
That'd be some good marketing for sure.
I mean, Mission Barbecue here has an old deuce and a half in front of it. I think it'd be better if there's like a Huey or a Black Hawk or a Chinook out in front of my place. That would draw the crowds.
For sure.
Even if you don't fly, just leave it parked there.
Yeah. We just got a Mission Barbecue, and I had no idea that Mission Barbecue was a thing, but we just got one like in probably late 2022 in Colorado Springs.
Yep.
And that place is phenomenal.
So I love them. I love what they do. I love their mission. I love what they stand for. I mean, obviously the product is a very good product. They're a bit chainy for me now at this point. But
Sure.
one of the things that, and like one of the reasons why I started and I opened, or I'm opening my own warehouse slash coffee retail, whatever you want to call it, brick and mortar here in Charlottesville, is that the only thing that exists here is Mission Barbecue. And the city that I'm in has the National Ground Intelligence Center, the U.S. Army JAG School, has a lot of military that come to this area because DC's 2.5 hour or 2 hours up the street, and people want to get away from the Beltway, so they come down here because this is a really nice area to be in. But if Mission Barbecue is like all that they're doing to celebrate the veteran community, then like that's a massive gap. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll fill it. And so that's why this is standing itself up and why I'm branding myself the way I do here. And like, someday when this is all said and done, I'll take a lot of photos of the inside of this place. And while it's a little bit industrial, it's more an homage to kind of the military. Like we've all been in hangars, we've all been in places where you're like, okay, well, this is where I'm going to, sleep for the next 6 hours waiting for this aircraft, or whatever it is. And, it's just kind of a feel, but I think it's cool and it's good for this area.
That's right. You just opened up a new facility. You have an industrial roaster now. Walk us through how you made that decision. Like, all right, it's time. I'm moving out of my basement. I'm buying this facility, or at least renting this facility and building it out as my own.
Well, it came as a byproduct of leaving my career. So in May of 2023, I was like, okay, ARC has grown to the point where something's going to have to happen. Either I'm going to have to just accept that this is never going to be more than a side hustle and that's what it is, or I'm going to have to commit full time to this process. And my wife and I, we kind of looked at it, we made a decision, and we looked at the trajectory of the company and what could happen and what would happen if I put all of myself into it. And said, okay, well, let's do it. And so I did that. And then very soon after that, I really started doing some analysis on how I was already operating versus what it would like if I was my own roaster. And so, and like massive production roast, right? The ability to actually be the wholesaler. And I realized that I needed to do that so that I can control pretty much my entire process. A lot like, McDonald's controls everything top to bottom. Like they own the farms, they own the cattle, they own everything up until, the company that makes the straws. Like they own all of it. That was kind of my methodology for, okay, how do I do this? And some of it I'm getting a lot closer to, but now that I control my own coffee, I control my own manufacturing, and that is going to set me up for success business wise, because then it's like everything is controlled in house and I don't have to worry about so much about outside suppliers or outside roasters. And it made more sense to me at the time.
Nah, man, that's, if you're able to, that's the way to do it. If you own your entire logistical supply chain, now you're not beholden to other people's issues or price changes, shortages, whatever it might be. You can have a consistent product at a consistent price at a consistent timeline. You're just minimizing the variables.
And that was my background. So like my background, other than being a logistics officer, like I went off and got my master's degree while I was still in the Army in procurement and acquisition management, which is all about establishing manufacturing lines, going through and doing supply chain validation, doing a lot of the things that I'm doing now. So like even before I ever left the Army, I kind of educated myself on exactly what I'm doing now. And I didn't know it at the time because I was like, well, I'm a logistics guy. I don't really want to get my MBA. I really don't want to go work for EY or, Deloitte or any of these other companies when I get out. But I need to do something to further educate myself over just a business administration degree. And so I was like, well, I mean, this seems up my alley, and it's like totally my alley. And so like it's given me I think a leg up, because it was easy for me to kind of slip back into my education post-military and be like, okay, what am I actually doing here and how do I do it the best way?
It seems like you are already having the educational background for this without you realizing that was the path you were going down, and then you just happened to stumble upon something, or whether it was self-fulfilling prophecy or dumb luck. You realize you had these skills and you're able to capitalize on it. Having that detailed knowledge of supply chain, as I imagine running a business is very similar to Napoleon's view on war. If you're just focused on the one aspect of the product or the marketing side, it looks cool and it looks sexy and it's what everyone is naturally drawn to. But the true business successes are the ones that look at the logistics side, the supply side, that are able to cover down on all the support side of making sure that product can be the same consistently every single time and provide the customer value every single time they get it.
Well, look, I'm not saying that I'm doing it the right way. Okay. I'm not saying that I'm like great at all of
You're
this.
doing something right.
Well, I mean, I appreciate that. I do think that, I mean, I've done a lot of hard things, and I've done it at the expense of like not scaling faster than I probably could have, or not going out and getting, a small business loan for some astronomical amount of money and then hiring a bunch of people without the demand there to actually, build cash flow. I think one of the reasons why I've chosen to do what I've done is because I want to understand all of the processes so that when I do hire people, because my goal is to hire vets, my goal is to hire first responders, be a fixture of employment in this community, then I want to know what I'm talking about. Like I want somebody to come in and be like, yeah, you've done a great job, Mike, but here's what we can do because I know all these other things. Great. But at least I know the basis of what we're doing here. You like in the Army, it's all 10 level tasks, right? Like, hey, you're an E1 to E4. I know the basics of what I'm supposed to do. I might not know how to be a SAR major in that task, but I know the basics enough to be dangerous. And that was my focus when I built this thing.
And
Can you walk through some of so I know from the outset, like how much of this did you think was going to be B2C and how much of it was going to be B2B, and how has one of my questions is how has your marketing impacted your B2B growth as opposed to your B2C side?
I will say to you that my number one focus starting off was direct to consumer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I was like, oh, okay, this is the way it has to be. It has to be on the internet. It's got to be people buying coffee from me over the internet. And I really wasn't even looking at businesses as like, hey, I'm going to go after, business accounts and start establishing wholesale and everything else. Like for 2 years, I didn't do that. And it was only recently that I started shifting my focus a little bit. And quite honestly, some of the B2B relationships I have now is because they started off as B2C customers, like people who bought from me and are like, this is fantastic. Like, we want you to do this for our company now for a long time. Okay, cool. And so that established that relationship. And now, from a marketing side, I think I still probably slant way more to direct to consumer B2C than I ever do B2B. But I have, like right now, my nephew is my he's my very first employee that I hired full time. So he is like hard charging out there in the B2B world, right? Like I don't have him focused on, direct to consumer at all. I have him focused on, hey, let's go establish these wholesale relationships because that's what's important. That's what, that helps drive, obviously a different revenue channel, but it also builds relationships from business to business, which is what I want. Like I want people, to think, hey, I want to buy veteran owned coffee. Well, who am I going to buy it from? Hey, ARC can do that. I want to buy it from them. And I want, my name out there to be able to do that.
And you've landed some pretty decent size businesses. Like, didn't you say Virginia Tech is a customer of yours? You have your coffee being supplied in Kroger's.
Yeah.
You have.
So I have business relationships with a lot of different universities, from Villanova all the way through the two major schools here in Virginia, and then a couple other ones that are, I guess percolating, to use a bad pun, right? And then yeah. So I've made my way into Kroger. I'm in a 3-store trial here in the Charlottesville area with the ability to expand into pretty much all of the central to kind of east central Virginia regions when the time comes. And I've transitioned completely more B2C than anything else in terms of Amazon FBA and like the ability to move on Amazon. But I'm also like finding mom and pop businesses who are big supporters of the veteran community who also want to be able to be a distributor or be a reseller for ARC. So that's, again, it's all building relationships and moving forward. And I think a lot of things have started to fall a little bit into place.
So for the people out there looking to land retail, can you walk us through what it took to get a big name like Kroger?
That was hard. That was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. So like I had a friend of mine. So okay. It all starts with networking. Hold on. I think that's FedEx. Give me 1 second.
Ooh,
Let's pause
coffee
it.
shipment.
All right.
Sorry, we had a quick coffee delivery break.
That's right.
1,200 pounds of FedEx coffee.
The life of the solopreneur, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if you're doing it yourself, you're doing it all. So, no. So the question you asked was about how did I get into Kroger and how hard was it? So it was incredibly hard. So I had a friend of mine, and it all starts with networking, right? So by me being active on LinkedIn, I'm connected with a gentleman who connected me with a buyer at Kroger. So we had some initial conversations about what it was, what I wanted to do, how local programs worked. And then he's like, great. Well, if you want to be a supplier, you need to fill all of the rest of this stuff out. So that led to me being approved as a vendor, which led me to then having to pay to be on Kroger's ERP system and then introduce all my products into Kroger's ERP system.
What is ERP?
So like enterprise retail program. So like it's kind of like the back end stuff. So when it's like most companies, like larger companies. So think like Northrop Grumman, like largely defense companies will use an ERP system for manufacturing called like SAP, or, there's a bunch of them out there, right? But what it does do is it's basically a process where here's the order, here's how it's manufactured, here's the bill of materials, here's it goes through everything, here's how it gets shipped and sent out the door. Well, that's kind of what you do with Kroger or any of these other retail places, except you're not doing the back end stuff. You're introducing the product into their system because you're the vendor. So that's what I had to do. And that took a long time. That took a lot longer than I thought it would. And from a retail perspective, if you're direct to consumer and you're just selling off a website, that's much different than you're selling a product in a grocery store, because then you have to think back through the process. Well, how does my product get bought at the grocery store? They're not buying it from me. They're buying it at the self-checkout. They're buying it at the actual cashier. So it has to have a UPC code. So now I have to go back through all my products and get UPC codes onto my bags, but then register my UPC codes to be active nationally. So like you start thinking through like, where do I even get UPC codes? So I had to start figuring. So I had to learn how to do all of that before I could ever introduce my product into Kroger, and then be prepared to be able to do national distribution. Because ultimately, if Kroger says, "Hey, we love your product," it could go wide fairly quickly.
And UPCs are for every single product and every variation of the product. So t-shirts, for example, if you have 5 colors in 3 different sizes, you now have 15 different UPCs you need, right?
That's right. Yeah. So what I have is I bought 150 UPC codes. So you go online, you buy them, and then but 150 UPC codes goes very quickly depending on what you're attempting to do. So like if you're doing shirt sizes, like you said, you can suck through all of those UPC codes and be done, and that'll be it. But if you don't have them, you can't transact nationally. And like a lot of, like, especially on Amazon, you almost need UPC codes for your own stuff because it protects you. It protects your brand, protects a lot of other things. Nobody else can use them. It's registered only to you. So like that's where you just got to be like, okay, well, this is another cost in the chain to be able to do these things.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you're in with Kroger, how do you expand through the Kroger system? What does that look like?
Well, for now, what it is it's so like the people who I talk to now is the buyer for the entire Mid-Atlantic region. So he's responsible for pretty much the DC area all the way down, I think, through to South Carolina, right? And so that's kind of the start. So like if it expands, then it'll go there. And if it continues to do well, then it could migrate to different areas, like into like the Nashville area, or like the kind of the SEC region, right? Or even up north. And then again, as it continues to scale and continues to grow, it just depends on how well it does in the marketplace. But then you change from what's called direct store delivery, which is me grabbing, 30 bags of coffee and taking it to the store and putting it on the shelf, to does it get shipped to Kroger's distribution system? And if so, do I now have to use a food broker, or do I have and I don't know, because I haven't got to that point yet. But these are all the things that I have to figure out, and things that anybody has to figure out once they're trying to do national distribution through a grocery chain. I'm sure that there's somebody else out there that's done it, but I mean, I don't know. But so we'll see. We'll see.
And how's it been going with Amazon? 'Cause you basically have three main avenues for people to get your stuff. You're the retail with Kroger. You have your website where you just you'll package it up, put it in a box, and FedEx it off to your customer. And now you have the FBA, the Fulfilled by Amazon option, where people can go on Amazon and buy it through there. Walk me through what that looks like and how you were able to build out that structure. I know that's a big goal for a lot of product companies.
Yeah. So my sales channels right now are predominantly, what will be brick and mortar, my website. You can buy off all sorts of social media. You can buy at Kroger, mom and pop, whatever, and then Amazon FBA. So the thing I learned about Amazon FBA, because I've done both. So you do Amazon by merchant, fulfillment by merchant, which means you list your product on Amazon, but any sales comes back to you. You're responsible for filling it, right? But then you have FBA, which is fulfillment by Amazon, which is effectively Amazon Prime. Like we all know it as Amazon Prime memberships, where you can get it in 2 days. And it's where your product is stored at an Amazon distribution facility. And when somebody orders it, they pick it and send it. You don't touch it after that point. That's interesting because really, in order to do that, you have to be trademarked, and you have to have a brand. You have to be trademarked and brand registry. So like I had to go pay money to and do all the hard work to trademark my brand, so that I could then be a store on Amazon to do fulfillment by merchant or fulfillment by Amazon, to then put all my product there and build out that. So that wasn't as hard, but it still took a long time, because again, it's like you only have so much time in the day, and if you're doing it yourself, what are you giving up to do that? So like there'll be days when I was working on it, I'm like, this is great, I got 80% of the way, I don't want to do this anymore because now I got to go ship and roast coffee, or like I'm tired of doing this, I don't want to so like it could have been done a lot faster. I mean, sure, I could have paid somebody, but again, glutton for punishment over here. I'd rather have learned it myself first, so that I know what it was like before I hired anybody else to do it.
What was the decision point to go the FBA route? I imagine that like brands that are Amazon Prime and are able to ship Amazon Prime sell better on Amazon. And then was it the workload? How did that break into your margin? What was the decision point there?
Honestly, it came down to speed. Like I wanted the efficiency that Amazon provided to my customers. I wanted my customers to have an option that if they wanted coffee 2 days from now, they could do it. Because my timelines, like I'd love to say I could get coffee to you in 2 days. If you ordered it today, would it arrive to you in 2 days from now? No. And that's the reality of that, is that, even the stuff that the coffee that I sent to you, Kevin, like that probably took a 5 to 6 day transit time, just because it's east to west coast, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Amazon will put a distribution center in California, and they'll put some of my products in that distribution center in California. And then as I scale, they will adjust quantities wherever the most sales are happening, so that it does meet that 2 day timeline.
So they're doing their own logistical metrics. They're saying, all right, California is a huge hub for this, so we want some out there. We're not getting much in the Midwest. We're not going to put any in the distribution hubs. And
they move it all around and do what they need to do. And then I don't have to touch it again. And that's why it's so great, because, then you're allowing, quite honestly, the largest distribution network in the United States to do its thing. And you're kind of a customer of that process, but then you get to see how they do it. So it helps you. Like I learn every day from Amazon what they're doing, because it makes sense for me to either implement or adopt practices that I can do at my scale.
Do they share their metrics with you? They're like, hey, we see the majority of your purchases are coming from
Yeah.
these states, from these okay. So you can actually learn from them for
Oh
your own
yeah.
marketing stuff.
Amazon and the analytics side on Amazon is phenomenal. Like if I had known that, I would have started that right out of the gate, but I didn't have my trademarks and I didn't have everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Everything happens when it's supposed to happen. But yeah, I mean, I'm learning a lot, man. Look, this whole thing, if nothing else, I mean, you know, it can, you can go down some really cool business lessons and some really deep, dark rabbit holes about KPIs and metrics and all this other stuff. But at the end of the day, it's like there's a lot of these systems that help you and are designed to help businesses if they're willing to just put in the work. I mean, you just got to put in the work. And, you know, like to your point, Greg, it's like, does Amazon cut into my margin? I mean, sure, a little bit. I mean, they pay for, you know, you pay for the shipping, you pay for the referral fee. But at the end of the day, if the product sells through, you can make a lot of money on Amazon for the simple fact that Amazon will group you into categories and say, you know, we've all been there. You click on something and it's like customers also like, and then they start listing 5 other things. You can't pay for that type of exposure on like, I mean, you could do it for pay-per-click like Google ads and everything else. And again, I can get real nerdy into this real quick. So I have to like back way off before people's brains start melting and they're like, Mike, I don't care. You know, so, but I mean, I hope that answers most of it.
No, that does.
That's great information. And I was just thinking as you were talking through this, I'm like, we just need to sit down with you and create a series of master classes. Like, here's how you make a QPC here, or a QPC. Here's how you get on to Fulfilled by Amazon. Here's how you get Fulfilled by Merchant. Here's how you trademark. Like, these are all things that you've done and have experienced firsthand and learned tremendously from, that we can now spread that to the broader veteran community.
Well,
like, hey, if you're looking to do these things, here's a down and dirty course on how Michael Klemmer from Aerial Resupply Coffee did it and is successfully executing on it.
Well, and that's something that, quite honestly, I've had in the back of my mind as it needs to be done. I just don't have the bandwidth. I hate that phrase. I hate the Army for teaching me all these stupid buzzwords that I have to keep using, and I don't understand why I'm using it.
They don't actually make sense, but they become common knowledge. Like, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I know. Everybody knows it, but you know, but
it's like orientate yourself to the map.
Yeah. Well, before I forget where we were talking about, like, I've had the thought of doing all of this and actually building it out, because I do know that people see what I'm doing and they're like, wow, this guy's doing it. And they get to see the journey and process in progress, because for me, building in public was important. It was important to build everything visibly for people to be able to see, to show people that it's not as hard as people want to make it out to be. And that it can be done by somebody with a below average intelligence like myself, who, you know, as a logistics guy, it's like your Army, your dumb Army, right? You're in the, like, it can be done. Anybody can do this. It's following just routine processes that have been done before. Like, I'm not reinventing the wheel. So how did other people do it? Somebody else has a video on it. So I want to do the same thing. But yeah, to your point, I actually found a list of every corporate buzzword that I could find, just so I could make videos and fun videos of it. I think it's like a 20-page list that I have, and I'll make videos and try to insert as many buzzwords as I can. And it's just like, you can make complete sentences out of nothing but buzzwords. It's ridiculous. I hate it.
Just look at people's LinkedIn headlines. You're like, what?
Oh man,
is it
don't
you
do? Don't get me started on that.
I also have a policy. If someone sends me a message and they use the word synergy seriously in it, I do not respond.
Synergies.
I'm like,
that's a no for me.
Hard pass. Like, I don't care how cool of an offer of collaboration and whatever. Like, if you say synergy, we're not going to get along.
Well, I auto block anybody who says, do you have time to jump on a 15-minute call to learn about each other? Automatically blocked. I don't like, no thanks, I'm going to forget about it. Nothing. I hit the block button. I never look back. I'm done.
Probably saves you so much time.
Well, yeah. I mean, you know, all these tools in social media are there for you to use, but nobody ever uses them because they're like afraid, like, to offend somebody. Like, oh, if I block this person, you know, like, what value do I get from blocking him? Well, you never hear from him again. And there's 330 million people in the United States. I 100% guarantee that person is not the linchpin to whatever success you were going to have.
Yeah. There's also a billion people on LinkedIn. And so if you have a tiny fraction of those people sending you messages of let's get to know each other, that's a lot of times. I mean, you're going to what, like 40,000 now on LinkedIn? Like you have a significant following.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. I mean, that's one of those things where
Persistence.
you wake up one day and you're like, oh my gosh, like what happened? Well, you know what the crazy one is, and I'm actually going to post about this later, is 5 months ago, I just saw a post, or somebody commented on a 5-month-old post, and then it drew me back into what I wrote, which is my Facebook feed and my Instagram accounts. I had just passed 5,000 on Instagram 5 months ago. And today I'm at 130,000 on Instagram.
Oh,
so
Jesus.
it's
Holy
like
shit.
And so like I'm like, how the hell did that happen? And so that's where I look at it and I go, you wake up and the next day you got, 125,000 more followers. You're like, where did that come from? LinkedIn is just, I mean, it is a methodical approach to everything I'm doing. It's still my predominant, my number one social media I use. If it went away tomorrow, I'd probably be thankful because I get like most of my time back. But it works, right? It's how I built my business.
How much success have you seen on Instagram? And this is Kevin and I go back and like I think I've been telling him for the last 3 months, hey, I'm going to get an Instagram started. And
I tell him I will not be on Instagram because I've deleted it probably a dozen times this year. No, not this year. In the last 12 months.
There's a huge veteran and military presence on there, and I've always go back to like we need to get on there.
First of all, it totally different audiences, right? Mm-hmm. Totally different for what you're doing. Instagram and TikTok are probably the two that are just kind of like, if you really think about it in like as layman's terms as you can, I'm here to screw off and waste time and laugh. Like that's all I want to do on those two platforms, right? LinkedIn is kind of I
feel like that's the summary of our podcast. We don't want to work. We just want to screw around and entertain ourselves.
But that's good, right? I mean, that's fun. I mean, but then you get to like LinkedIn and that's the professional network that I'm trying to like just have fun with because everybody's too uptight, if you ask me. And then, like Facebook is kind of in between, you can go anywhere you want. YouTube is where it's at, right? Like YouTube is the one that I think like I'm going to foray myself or push myself into because it's the platform that is the largest search engine in the world, not named TikTok and not named Google. So
if I'm not there, get his own YouTube channel?
And maybe, it's funny because I don't know if I could do that. It's on a somewhat serious note. I made a funny Chris video a long time ago, where I was standing in an airport. You might have remembered this one. I was standing in the airport and I was like making fun of Navy SEALs when nobody will ask them if they were a Navy SEAL. Did you ever see this one?
I think I do. Like, why won't you ask me if I'm a Navy SEAL?
Yeah. So I did that. And then in the video and then, like one of my strategies that I think works really well is I try to do something funny on video and then I'm more serious in whatever I'm writing. Right. And I was talking about transition and I was talking about, hey, from my vantage point, it seems like a lot of SEALs just follow this one route and they don't do anything else and they don't expand. And again, it's my, I am a data point of one, so I have a perspective of one. I got so much hate from that video from the SEAL community. It was ridiculous. and it was, in fact, I had one guy who was a former SEAL, or at least he claimed to be, I believe him. So I'm going to say he's a SEAL, basically come at me and say that I didn't know what I was talking about. I shouldn't be mocking people. And that, because I have no idea what the SF community is like, that I had no benchmark or no platform to stand on and everything else. And I went back and forth with this guy and I was like, dude, if you're going to like take it as just face value, like at least look at what else I've done. Like take a minute to like, see what is this guy doing? He didn't want to hear any of it. And so, I could have blocked him and I could have just been like, you know what, I don't care. But ultimately I just left it open. I'm like, all right, well, I mean, people are going to disagree with what I end up doing, but it got me thinking a little bit and like, so Chris doesn't make as many appearances lately. Maybe in part because of that, but I don't know. Part of me also is like, you know what? I'm having fun with it. And as long as it's not hurting anybody, then what does it matter?
Have a fucking sense of humor. That's like,
Which
who
platform was
cares?
that on?
LinkedIn.
Oh, that was the LinkedIn hate. I was like, if it was Instagram, it's like, dude, get off Instagram. Like, don't stop worrying about what people are saying on Instagram.
Well, dude, I've actually personally thought about. I would redact the name, but I've thought about posting it just because I want to show people some of the messages behind the scenes. I don't know if there's any word. I don't think there's any value in that, but it does. You just gotta be aware that when these characters come out, like you're gonna get hate from some people, and it just is what it is. Like you're never gonna make anybody happy. It's like the video I made where I don't even remember the video, but people were like, "Oh, that's fake." Oh, it was the helicopter flying into a mountain and then it's like positioning itself there because it's the French Air Force or whatever, the gendarmerie that were extracting people off the side of a mountain, and
those dudes are crazy.
It looks fake. He literally put the nose of the helicopter against the mountain, and then everybody
the blades are like rubbing against the mountain.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. I got so many people who are like, that's fake, and I'm like, okay. But then you have to defend. And then I wrote a post about how people always say things are fake because everybody says things are fake. If they don't witness it with their own eyes, it's fake. And I don't believe in that. But that's, I think, a lot of the hate that I get back when I make crazy characters like Chris or, I don't know. You know what I need to do is I need to have Chris. I need to make an Army Ranger character is what I need to make because I know those guys well too. Maybe I can have Army Ranger and Chris bounce special forces things off of them.
I'm surprised you haven't taken the naval aviator and Cobra pilot. I mean, I can't really speak to Apache pilots, but I know F-18 pilots and probably now F-35 pilots, but F-18 pilots and Cobra pilots were notoriously we're the cool guys on campus, our stink don't shit type people. Like I love them. Some of my best friends are pilots, but like there's a distinct personality with those people. It goes back to that Top Gun line of, oh, you're a pilot? No. Naval aviator. There's a difference.
So when I got promoted from captain to major, you go to ILE, and normally if you're in the Army, you go to Leavenworth because that's where CGSC is, right? But they were like, no, you're going to the Air Command and Staff College in Montgomery, Alabama. So here I am with 500 of my closest Air Force aviators as I'm, and so, you have all these classes and you're broken down in these little seminars. And in my class, I had an F-15 driver. I had a couple C-17 drivers and a C-5 pilot. And then I had a Marine, and then I had an F-22 guy, not in mine, but in the next one. They are exactly what you just said. Like it's not even close. And you know why they are that way, but it's just like the alpha dog mentality is right there.
Yeah.
But that's not a bad idea. Having maybe I'll do my own take on like Val Kilmer's Iceman and like try to find something along those lines.
I like where this is going.
I like it too. Well, it's funny because I have Army. I know Army, so it's easy to do the Army, but
that's true. You haven't done much Air Force stuff.
No, and I haven't done much Navy stuff either. So, and I don't have a Marine. So maybe what's coming from this is I need to have characters from all branches, and then I'll find somebody. I got to make fun of the Coast Guard. So we'll see what happens.
I feel like you need to have videos. I think you need to have an ERG video where it's just like your entire veteran employee group, and it's all the veterans sitting around from the different branches.
Well, I've been thinking about kind of trying to do what I do and make it in like the style of The Office. So we'll see what happens.
Have you seen the videos where it's like, I'm the older sister, I'm like the responsible one, and then goes, so you should, with the Coast Guard, to be like, I'm the Coast Guard, and then just cut them off, or just like 100%. Have them like in the background, just like in the corner, like crouching or something like that, being super awkward.
100%. I can absolutely see that video in my mind right now. So I think that's a great idea.
I like where this is going. This is how content is created in offshoot podcast conversations.
Oh, dude, it's hilarious. Like, and I'm not afraid to do any of this stuff. It's like the video I did yesterday. Like I'm like, I guess openly mocking general officers, which most people would never dream of doing. But I mean, it's like, hey, guess what? They're people too. At the end of the day, we're all just people. Yeah, they got a position in life that puts them in a position to, do whatever they want to do. But I mean, they're not immune to being mocked, and they should be okay with it.
For sure.
So
So what's coming next for ARC? You mentioned brick and mortar. Is that you referencing Kroger's type brick and mortar, or are you actually looking to open your own coffee
the store here.
shops? Oh,
Well,
you have an ARC store?
Well, that's the same thing. So the warehouse, store, roastery is essentially the same thing. So
You're gonna have a tasting room?
I mean, I'm going to have the ability for people to come in and grab coffee, and at some point, I'll do what's called. This sounds really bad considering the group of people that were here, but it's called cupping, right? And so, yeah, no, it's okay. It's all good, man. Like I heard it too, and I was like, oh my god. But it's you do it, and it's how you
can't go with that.
Huh?
You can't stick with that name.
It's
not with the veteran community. You can't.
Well, it'll be hilarious. I mean, I gotta figure. See. The thing is, like everything I do, I try to tie into the vet community to make it hilarious and to make it funny and to make it stick out, and people be like, "Oh, I remember that." But the technical coffee term is cupping, but it's like, you know, what I'm gonna call it. I don't think it'll make sense to anybody else, but I might just call it the UA or the urinalysis because it's about the same thing, right? And but have everybody come in and you can taste it. So yeah, there will be a tasting area, and I'm gonna have limited seating. It was really never my intent to make this a coffee shop in that regard, right? At least initially. But all of my manufacturing is out in the open. I want people to be able to see what I'm doing. And I have a little bit of a shipping area and place to house all my stuff. And it's 2,500 square feet, so it's a decent size for what I'm doing now. But I mean, 3 years from now, my goal is to be an 8-figure business. So we're going to see what ends up happening. And at that point, I'll be like, okay, I need a lot more space than 2,500. And down the road, what I want ARC to be, I mean, I'd love for it to be like a place where it's got like a shooting range and archery, axe throwing. It's got a gym. It's got a coffee shop. It's like an activity center. Think like Dave and Buster's for vets, but just like, something that is a place where people can come, where it's not just sitting around coffee and talking. It's like it's activity, which is what I think the VFW and the American Legion are missing, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no activities to draw people in, so nobody wants to be a part of it because we all don't want to just sit around eating spaghetti dinner and drinking a beer. Like that's not us anymore. That might have been people 30 years ago at the end of Desert Storm or even in Vietnam when they came out, but that's not this generation of vets. We want to do something more with our lives.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that idea. What about have you ever heard of Kopi Luwak coffee?
No.
The monkey poop coffee?
No, I've not heard of that.
You never heard that? Let me pull it up here.
I'm a failure at life for not hearing that in the coffee.
Yeah, this is I remember I had it in East Timor when I did a it was actually an Army course out of PACOM, but we did a rotation through the PACOM AOR, and one of the spots was East Timor. It's like the second newest country in the world. It's absolutely terrible. They went through like a civil war, and the Australian Army there is kind of there as a peacekeeping force, and the Portuguese were the ones that managed a lot of the stuff and kind of run the government. But they have that, I forget what it's called, but I call it cat shit coffee. These little rodent cat looking things that wander around in the jungle, and they created, or they've developed a taste for the coffee beans, and they eat them like when they're still red and actual berries or beans or whatever they are.
Yeah,
they eat them, they shit them out. Somehow someone thought it was a good idea to collect this poop, pull the red beans out that have now been partially digested in their digestive tract. Not monkeys, not goats, not other things. This particular cat, pull it out, roast it. I hope wash it off, roast it, and it's like $20-$30 a pound for this stuff. It's super high quality apparently.
Let me read you the definition of it.
Okay.
So it's a coffee that consists of partially digested coffee cherries, which have been eaten and defecated by the Asian palm. I think it's pronounced civet. The cherries are fermented as they pass through a civet's intestines, and after being defecated with other fecal matter, they are collected.
So someone's job is literally collecting cat poop in the jungle.
I
Yeah,
think that this is Ark's new vertical.
I'm gonna like in listening to this and like applying my own warped sense of humor. I'm absolutely gonna do this and call it like porta shitter coffee. You know,
Oh my god.
yeah, yeah, or slit trench coffee or something like that. Like I'm absolutely gonna do it. And if anybody beats me to the punch, they deserve it. But I'm gonna find this stuff.
Oh my god. Please send me a bag. I will promote the hell out of it. It has to be called porta shitter coffee.
Yeah, I think I think that's it.
I'm gonna find something.
And just have a picture of a cat sitting in a porta john with the door open.
Yeah, well, see, I don't know if I now that I think about it, like my daughter draws all my flavored coffees and it's all cats. So now it's like, I got to figure out a way to not let her do that. And I don't know, man, this is too good not to do. It's too good not to do. Right. Like the other way you could name it is you could name it Jack Shack coffee, because that's also the same thing for a lot of the Marines. So like there's a lot of ways you can go with this.
Oh my god! I don't think we can top that. I think we just have to end the episode there. Jack Shack, porta shitter coffee.
Yeah. I mean, this is going to devolve very quickly. I mean, not that it hasn't already, but I mean, still.
Oh my! Wow, that took a spin, and I love it. So with that, you have your coffee shop, your roaster house that you're looking to build it out. You have your Instagram, you have your Facebook, you have your LinkedIn, you have your TikTok. You have your website, you have the FBA, like you are all over the place. We're going to have all those links in the episode summary. If you aren't already following Michael Klemmer on at least LinkedIn, he has some hilarious videos. Some of them might be like, but the fact is he's out there creating content so often. He acts surprised that he hit 40,000, but it's just a testament to if you show up every day creating stuff, putting yourself out there, and just having that consistency, you will grow. And then having that tenacity of, I don't know how to do that, but I can figure it out. YouTube, it's the greatest university there is.
It is. Let me say this. So for any vet that's listening out there, everybody has heard this phrase. You are part of the 1% that has raised your right hand to defend the country, right? We've all heard it. It is the calling card of the military to kind of give you that sense that you are the 1%. Less than 1% of people post on social media. So if you're willing to be the 1% to raise your right hand, you can be the 1% to post something and move forward in your life and grow your own stuff.
That's a great testament to pass along to the veteran community. You've already put yourself out there. Just do it again.
That's the way I look at it. But hey, man, this has been fun. I think like quite honestly, like this is not long enough. Like we're going to have to do this again at some point.
Oh, for sure. Honestly, the only reason why we keep it a little bit shorter is because people have attention spans. I just want to keep the conversation going and spitball and read more ideas. But we'll just do a follow-on episode in a couple months to see where you are, see how close you are to that 8-figure revenue mark.
Maybe at that point we'll all be drinking Jack Shack coffee, and then we can all.
God, I hope so.
If you can make this happen, you're the procurement expert. It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Actually, that'll be the timeline. Once Jack Shack coffee comes out and you send it to us, we'll have that episode drinking it, and we'll have a tasting review.
Give me 1 second. Hold on. Sorry.
Jack Shack coffee.
Oh my God, that's so good. Porta shitter coffee. Thank you for bringing that up. I completely forgot. When I went to East Timor, we actually tried it. We're like, yeah, it's good. It's just weird that they figured out this one particular animal, which means they probably tried other animals eating shit out coffee, and they're like, nah, that one was not good. Don't do the goats. Don't do the monkeys. But this little civic or whatever they call it, that stuff is on point. Rinse it off good, clean it, and then roast it. But humans are a weird species that somehow we figured that out. And then not only did we figure it out, but now we made a business out of it. So there's people walking through the jungle floor, collecting this poop, picking out the cherries, washing it off, and roasting it. We're still talking about this.
We got to do it. Like, okay, hold on. Send me the stuff. Send me the the link
I
so
will.
that I can make sure I'm looking at it, because I guarantee I can source it. And then I'm gonna
it's
find
Southeast
this.
Asia.
Well, yeah, okay. I mean, that leads. Next time we have a conversation, let's dive in a little bit more into like the sourcing of all this, and I'll talk you guys through it. And we can talk.
Yeah, that would be an interesting conversation in and of itself. Is just like okay, we started talking about this shit coffee, and now Mike 2 months later has tracked down exactly where this is at and how to get it.
I'm not kidding you. I will throw that up on the website the moment I figure out how to do this. Like, I'm not scared of $30 a pound coffee if people are willing to pay a little bit more for that. But I guarantee the name by itself. I mean, we'll see. We will see. I'm willing to do it at least once.
Yes. Yeah, I love it. Even if it's a novelty product, it'll be
100%. Well, I mean, that's like half of what I do anyway is novelty products, but that's okay.
Well, think about how perfect of a gift that'll be for like veterans giving other veterans, like, hey man, just wanted to let you know I was thinking about you, sent you a gift.
Yeah.
And it shows up with Jack Shack coffee or Porter Shitter coffee, and they're like, what the fuck did you just send me?
Oh yeah, I got this. I know exactly what I'm doing now. Like, this is a good idea. There's a lot of good ideas.
It should be Chris sitting on a toilet in like a Marine uniform, eating crayons, and then shitting out coffee. Like, that's, to me, that's what I'm envisioning.
I mean, well,
as a former Marine, I endorse this.
I like this. Well, it's funny because if you look at it that way, instead of talking about how it came from the inside of a cat, you can just say it was a partially digested bean through the inside of a Marine. And then
it came from the Marine, or from the MR. Well, it came from the MRE Folgers packet.
Yeah, 100%, man. Like, this is what we do. We comb the earth after the United States Marine Corps, and we picked out the partially digested MRE coffee and retooled it as Jack Shack coffee. I can absolutely see this working. There's nothing that could go wrong here.
Nope. I support this wholeheartedly. I also take no part in responsibility.
Oh, it's okay. I mean, that's what insurance is for. So we're good. No. It's all good, man. No, again, this has been fun. And, we need to do this again.
Sounds good. We'll make sure we schedule that. As I said, I want to do the Jack Shack coffee taster in real time, and then we'll talk about how you sourced it.
Sounds good.
All right,
Thanks, Mike.
Have a good one.
Guys. You too.